And the very last method I'm going to show you is a nitrogen flow vacuum. So what we have is our nitrogen flowing out of the system just like we normally would. We have our hose open and our micron gauge shut off. And our nitrogen's over here just at the top, about 20 on a purge for 20 CFH. And we're just flowing nitrogen through the system. It's coming out right here at this point. Nothing fancy, nothing different we have before. The difference is what we're going to do with this is we're going to drop this flow rate down to where it says about 3 to 5 SFH. And a little ball over here is just barely bouncing off the bottom. From there I'm going to open my gas ballast, and I'm also going to close off the port right here, and we're going to start our pump up. Now what's different about this method is we're actually flowing a very small amount of nitrogen through the entire system while we're pulling a vacuum. Now I'm not a big fan of this method, but the idea is that the nitrogen molecules flowing through is bouncing around and hitting the water vapor molecules and causing them to loosen up. And so as we're doing that, we're bouncing through the system, we're coming back to our pump. Because it's putting a lot of work on the pump, you see a whole lot more water vapor, and even some of this is actually oil that's coming out in a very fine mist. So our flow indicator ball over here is just barely moving, it's just barely bouncing off the bottom. We're just allowing that nitrogen just to come through in little bits through the system, so it helps loosen up that water vapor. Now that we have this going, I'm going to go ahead and open up my micron gauge, and we're going to start seeing what our microns are doing. So we've dropped the pressure, we've dropped the boiling temperature of that water, allowing that water to boil, plus the nitrogen helps loosen up that water and helps push it out at a faster rate, ideally. Even with the nitrogen flowing through the system, we're still under 3,000 microns. So I'm going to go ahead and close off my gas ballast. We're still at a fairly low vacuum as this is happening, so it's just a very small amount of nitrogen. Now how long you should do this, it depends on what you're talking to. This is going to be really for very special scenarios. A lot of times you're dealing with medical equipment or very precision equipment. They'll do this process to make sure they get it where they need to be. Now that we get pretty close where we need to be, some people then they say do it for 30 minutes. Either way, you do the same process. You close this back off and you're going to see your microns start to really drop. And then you can pull down to a deep vacuum just like we have in all of the other examples.